Hello and welcome to the next installment of our singing techniques series. I promised that today we would be talking about posture breath. Yes, posture breath. One word, one unit, because it takes posture plus the breath to give us the energy source for our singing. The first thing that we are going to do is to develop a posture that we might call creative. And what does that mean? That we are in a body, in a houser, we might say, for our instrument, that will allow us to use our entire physical presence to create our ultimate goal, which is, of course, communication through singing. So in order to prepare the body, the posture, we are going to go through a process with several steps. We may not quite have 12 steps, although we could call this a 12-step program for recovering singers, perhaps. But we are going to begin with just 4 steps. And first of all, we are going to create this little diagram that you will see. Everything is going to be backwards on the video, but I'm going to be referring to this little stick figure, and this will be posted under the comments for the video. That we are going to have 4 different directions that we're going to be considering. We are going to have a vowel sound or consonant sound that will connect to each one of those directions. And we are going to have a certain body part that we are going to be focusing on, and a number. This is a little bit like a conditioned response. You've heard of Pavlov's dogs, so that after you have practiced this for a while, you can really just think each of these numbers and your body will respond to getting you into this position. This can come in really handy. I like to think about when you have a solo in an oratorio such as Messiah. I remember sitting on the stage for what seemed hours interminably waiting for the first soprano solo, and then having to just get up and immediately start singing There Were Shepherds Residing in the Fields. And I found that after I had practiced this particular technique, I found that I could just think these 4 numbers and be in a posture and a preparation to sing in just a matter of seconds. So the process itself will be a guided activity. We will not spend a lot of time on each one. You can spend as much time as you want to. This will be just very basic, and then you can extend it as long as you want to. The important thing to know is that every one of these activities is gentle, slow, allowing these things to happen. There's no forcing, pushing, pressure. It's based a little bit on the Feldenkrais method, which is really about gentle thought that will allow your body to find its optimal positioning. So we're going to begin with number 1. Number 1 will be focused on floating with the thought of an arrow. And you may have heard the idea of pretending you have a little hook and a thread that is suspending your skull. Well, this is that general idea, but we're going to think that we have an arrow coming out of the top of the head, and it's going to be floating our skull slowly, gently toward the ceiling. And as we are thinking of floating skulls, we will be breathing through a very relaxed, dropped jaw. We're going to allow the jaw just to relax, release. And if the back of the tongue is a little bit high, we form the mouth shape, the posture of the vowel E. So we're going to think as if we are breathing through a letter E, but we're not going to actually vocalize at this point in time. That will come later. So as we are thinking about just floating the skull, floating, allowing the head to gently release, the jaw to release, and we're going to slowly breathe, and float. If you are acquainted with, say, Lamaze technique or other breathing techniques, you know that you can actually concentrate on breathing into any position of pain if you're in labor, or for us, perhaps the little tensions, little tight spots that you might feel. So you can really focus on sending that energy, sending that air into those particular tension points. Next, we are going to go to number 2, which will be allowing the spine to release into its full length. So the torso may open and widen, of course, very important for singing. So we're going to focus on the spine and each one of those little vertebrae, from the cervical vertebrae, which are at the very top of the neck. It goes all the way up to your head, all the way down to the sacral, which is clear down in your bottom. So this is a long way, and between each of those little vertebrae is a space, and we're going to think of each one of those as a micro set of arrows floating. So our arrows are going to go both ways, or even tiny little ones in between. So we're going to allow the jaw to relax again, and this time have the tongue more relaxed to the bottom of the mouth, tongue forward still, helping that jaw to drop. And we're going to breathe through the posture of an ah vowel. So I'll do a few of those. Floating vertebrae. At any point, you can go back to a previous letter, number, and so I could go back to the E for a while, see if you can see that happening. Back to the ah. Good, and you can spend as much time going back and forth, finding any tension spots, any sore spots, and breathing into them. So we have number 1, floating skulls. Number 2, floating spine, vertebrae separating. You can actually grow a few inches doing this on the vowel ah. Number 3, I'm going to allow my hip joints to be free, so my legs may release away from my pelvis. Allow my knees to remain soft and unlocked. And if you've ever gotten dizzy and almost fallen off of the top row of the risers, you know why this is very important. By having my feet nice and steady flat under me, with my weight supporting my entire body, maybe a little more on the balls of the feet. Don't go rock back on the heels or you will lock your knees. So this is forward. And our idea now is that our little arrows are going from the center of the thighs and going forward. Could not draw this on the two-dimensional paper, but think in terms of floating thighs. The weight is on the balls of the feet. And our vowel sound for number 3 is ooh. So it's a little bit like sipping through a straw. So here we go, and think of floating onto the balls of your feet, relaxing your hip joints, and keeping your knees soft and unlocked. And perhaps more of a return back to the, then to the ooh. Good. Number 4 is not actually going to have a vowel, but more of a consonant sound, a nasal consonant by forming the sound at the end of the word sing. So say ing, feel that posture, and then breathe while your mouth is in that posture. You will find that you are now breathing through your nose, and that's okay. So our number 4 is going to be the idea of arrows coming out of our shoulders. So we're going to allow them to release away. Arms will hang loosely at the side. Hands will remain soft and untensed. And we will think of the arrows going straight out, getting a nice, straight, noble posture going as we breathe through our noses, but with the posture of the NG, sort of like smelling a rose. So this is number 4. Good. So, in summary, number 1, floating skulls, breathing through a letter E. Number 2, separating of the spine, floating the spine in both directions, growing tall and long on a letter A. We have the floating thighs, relaxing the knees, getting the weight balanced on our feet while we breathe through the U. And then the shoulders floating away, straight across as we breathe through the NG. We are going to do 2 of each breath, and I'm going to make some hand motions while I do this just to remind you. Number 1, E. Number 2, ah. Number 3, oo. Number 4, NG. One breath on each one, and I'm just going to say the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you really get good at this, you can do it all in one breath. I'm going to do that. See if you can see me do it. And there I am, beautifully aligned for singing. So our next video will be, once we have done the creative posture, then we will make sure it is creative, go through that 1, 2, 3, 4 inventory. Then we will have a pause, which is really important, making sure that our throat is open. Then we will inhale. Inhalation is simply letting the air fall in. We don't have to do a whole lot of machinations to get a breath. If we're in our good posture, all we do is what my friend Dr. Hauser, who I must give credit for this particular inventory, that pause and then what we call plop. And I'm going to do it again a little more silently now that you know I just took an inhalation. Plop. And then we'll suspend for a moment, make sure our throat is relaxed, and then we tuck. Return everything back to the position. The abdominal wall is pulled back in, pelvic floor muscles are contracted, and we're ready to plop again. So we make our inventory, pause, plop, pause, tuck, and then we're ready to go again. The cycle of breathing. Breathe before you think, speak, or sing. And we'll go further with the idea of posture breath and add some vocalizing to this in our next episode. Thanks for joining me. Enjoy your posture, enjoy your breathing. This is also an activity that is good with our stressful times. Do a little bit of it every day, and your health and your singing will thank you.